Hello, my name is Karl Kemm, Professor of Humanities at Del Mar College. In this video, I will explain how to use a very important exercise that I encountered while studying with Jack Herrick at the University of Northern Colorado. Before moving on, you should print out the 12 PDF Herrick etudes that I've made available to you. Jack Herrick started every lesson for about 10 minutes with most of his students with these exercises. Christopher Luba was a tremendous influence upon him and probably the originator of this exercise. There are 3 parts to this. In the first section, it deals with tone, intonation, resonance, articulation, and airflow. The second part is fingering technique, scales, modes, tonal comprehension, and I suppose you could include airflow and phrasing in that as well. And the third section has to do with your flexibility, your aperture, lead pipe angle, mouthpiece pressure, and your dexterity. It is also important to have access to a tone generator. While the visual tuners are normally helpful, you don't want to use this because this is about learning to respond off of what you hear and not what you see. Chris Luba held that if you are playing a note on the horn, that your oral cavity should resonate at that same frequency to acoustically reinforce it. In other words, if I play a C on the horn, my oral cavity should also resonate at that same frequency so as not to create an acoustical conflict. If my oral cavity resonates at a pitch other than what I'm playing, so if I'm playing a C, and I'm resonating too high like that, it's going to tend to be sharp, maybe thin toned. If it's too low, flabby and unsupported. And this acoustical conflict is taking place right next to the aperture where I'm producing the sound for the horn. Articulation completely screws up the shape of the oral cavity. And the reason it does that is because your tongue, when it articulates, it's up there and it knows it's got to get up there again for another 16th note later, so it's going to stay up there. The tongue is the strongest and most flexible muscle in the body, so it's just a matter of training this indefatigable resource to reposition itself immediately after every articulation. You have to be super intolerant of any laziness on the part of your tongue. You have your tone generator. Make sure that it is calibrated correctly. Turn it up loud so that you can hear what you're doing. You can hear all the sound, and you have to play loud into it as well. I'm trying to match that pitch. What you will hear young students do are 2 mistakes. One is they don't blow, they don't resonate the way that you would play the horn. They have to blow like that, and they have to sort of get over that. They're usually hesitant to play that way and resonate that way. Also, the other mistake they will tend to make is you will hear them against that pitch go. Did you hear that? Lazy tongue stays up there, so gives me a different note. You have to catch them on that and tell them, keep that tongue down low. Now, you'll hear that pitch. Okay. And now we're going to move on to the next line, which takes us to the B Locrian mode. And you're going to have to do the same thing, but this time against that. So here I am. You see, the problem with that is that I have to play minor second, which is dissonant, yes, but what you discover is that it's not just a clash, a fight. There is a very specific location that you can put this minor second interval. In fact, there are a couple of places you could put it, and they have different qualities. One is kind of low, and I tend to like to stretch the minor seconds. They give a very hearty dissonance, as opposed to a very brittle dissonance if they're close together. I'll show you. So the lower one has a resonating quality. Now my recording equipment doesn't catch all the sound as it should, but it's a matter of subjective choice, which one you need based on melody or harmony, but you should know that you have different places you can put that minor second. Or what you find out is that lower one tends to coincide with equal temperament. So where is it? There. So instead of just playing your minor seconds wherever, you need to figure out how to get your minor seconds in tune, as ridiculous as that sounds. Run through that exercise. It's also hard to resonate against that, but I would think that would train your oral skills. Moving on, you have a minor third. Okay, so you learn to tune that. It's a consonant interval, and if you have a room with good acoustics, you should be able to pick out the difference tone. There should be an F, a low F resonating if you get it in tune. The fourth interval, this is a persnickety one. Not a surprise in the Middle Ages, fourths were considered dissonant or perfect. They couldn't agree on it. Then the next one, the F, that creates a perfect fifth. Let's hope it's perfect. My oral cavity is getting pretty big and pretty low, and I go down lower, and I start getting in trouble. I have a 4-octave range on the horn, of course, but my whistling or resonating cavity really has barely 2 octaves. So what do? Probably at this point, or a little lower, I might want to change octaves to get the optimum resonance for, say, the D. And I have a choice of how I can resonate those in my oral cavity, depending on the tone quality. Do I want it a little bright and clear, or do I want it kind of foggy and kind of mellow? This brings up another issue in that you have choices as far as tone color is concerned. You have a C that you're playing, but there are octaves of that. Okay, so for those, I was going. Let's sharpen that. Okay, there. I could play this C with. case, but there's sometimes a use for that. Or I can give it the it has a kind of almost a brittle edge to it. I have to watch it doesn't get too sharp. So there's tone color possibilities. So that's something that's important for you to consider with this resonating, some of the usefulness of knowing the oral cavity shape. If you're playing that high C, you want to get fastest air possible. We know the tongue being high helps you get it. Okay, what happens if I go an octave lower? Well, I'm probably going to chip the note, right? Right? So I'll use the tongue to start the air, but then I'll bring the tongue down really low. Okay, so I have a C with a pretty sort of tone instead of that laser beam most. So consider how the resonation can help in terms of tone color, accuracy, and intonation.